Hi, my name is Father Jim Forson, and I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on this feast of the Ascension of our Lord. Several years ago, I worked with a rather elderly pastor who, at the breakfast table, had this somewhat morose habit of taking the morning paper and going right for the obituary section and talking to himself, but loud enough for everybody else at the table to hear. He would be looking at the obits and just saying, I outlived that one. Oh, I don't know who that one is. Oh, he was younger than me. I mean, he would go on like lovely breakfast conversation, and I just, I just never got into the obits much. But it did remind me of something I read once, a joke in the New Yorker magazine, where it showed this man reading the obituaries, and there were three columns. And the first column said, "Younger than you." Next column, "Older than you." And the third column, "Your age," right on the dot. So, like I said, I never paid much attention to the obits at all until I started getting older. And then, I would hear about some Hollywood actor that I knew of, or some rock star that would die. And then how old was that guy? And oh my God, he was younger than me. And it started to set in this, what, fear and awareness of my own mortality. Something I guess we all share, that maybe we're a little bit afraid of dying or of losing someone else to death. And I know that I can find myself afraid of dying. It's not that I don't believe in the resurrection. It's not that I'm not convinced that there is life after death at all. But this is the life I know. The ones I love live here with me. And the thought of leaving, well, it reminds me of this mother of one of our school children that I went to visit in the hospital several years ago. And she was so sick with cancer. And I went to go pray with her. And she said to me, "Father, I don't want to die. I don't want to leave my kids. I don't want to leave my husband. Pray that God lets me live." And I felt so badly for her. And I prayed with her and for her, but I didn't know if those prayers could stop that cancer. And they didn't, and she died. And it just broke my heart, because she, like all of us, she wanted to live. And she was clinging to this life, not wanting to leave it. And I get that. It's something I think that is a temptation for all of us, to cling to this life. And it is exactly what Jesus warned us not to do. Remember the story of Mary Magdalene after the resurrection of Jesus, when she was in the garden and she didn't recognize the resurrected Lord. And then when she did, what's the thing she wanted to do is throw her arms around him. And what did Jesus say to her? "Do not cling to me." Yes, which is what he said to his apostles when he was telling them that he was going to leave to prepare a place for them. And their response to it was the world was turned upside down. They didn't want to let go of their friend. And in the readings today on the Ascension, we see Jesus going to the hilltop with his disciples, and as it were, giving them their last marching orders, saying to them, "Baptize all the nations in my name. Preach the gospel to all peoples." Or basically, "Do for this world what I did for you. Take my message to them. You will do greater things than I ever did in my life." And he says all this to them and then starts to ascend. And what is their response to it? They stare up into the heavens. They don't move an inch. They just stay there staring up into the heavens. And I get that, because at some of the graveside services I've done in cemeteries, some families have the custom of taking these pigeons or these doves, and at the end of the service, they release them. Or some families have balloons that they let go. And when the birds or the balloons go up into the sky, the reaction of the people that are there at the graveside is identical to that of the apostles. We just stare. We look up into the sky and we watch the birds circling or the balloons rising, and we don't quit watching. We keep watching, almost as if I can keep my eyes on that last balloon, that last bird. Well, then the person who has died hasn't left me yet. And what happened with the angels coming? When they saw the apostles just standing around, staring up into the sky, the angels came and chided the apostles, saying to them, "Men of Galilee, what are you doing staring up into the skies? This Jesus of Nazareth, he is not here." Or basically saying to them, "Get busy," which is what he says likewise. The angels say to us likewise, "Get busy." What are you doing fearing death? What are you doing clinging to life? This is not what Jesus came into this world to proclaim. This is not the gospel of good news. Jesus came in to proclaim, "I bring you life and life in abundance." That is the gospel. And so the angels said to the disciples what they are saying to us on this feast: bring life to your husbands or your wives. Bring life. Bring life to your children. Bring life to your parents. Bring life to those strangers on the street, rather than clinging to life or fearing death or fearing losing someone else to death. Bring life. And so, my brother and sister disciples, on this feast of the Ascension, may we hear those angels' words and know our mission. And today, do that in our lives what Jesus did in his. May we bring life, and bring life in abundance.